You're listening to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, created to help you succeed in your educational journey. Learn more at baremetalcyber.com, where additional prepcasts, books, and training materials await. Let's get started. The purpose of creating an 8-week study plan is to convert the broad intent of "I will prepare for the CCSP exam" into structured, achievable steps. Without a plan, study efforts can feel scattered, jumping between domains without progress you can measure. An 8-week window provides a balance between urgency and depth, long enough to build mastery, but short enough to maintain focus without burnout. Coupled with daily routines, the plan transforms study from an occasional activity into a consistent habit woven into your schedule. Think of it like training for a race. Each day of practice builds on the last, and each week follows a rhythm designed to peak at the right moment. With this structure, you reduce anxiety, sustain motivation, and ensure every domain receives the attention it deserves. At the highest level, the 8-week plan maps the 6 exam domains into weekly themes. Each week emphasizes 1 or 2 domains, allowing concentrated focus while still keeping the bigger picture in view. This macro structure ensures coverage across the blueprint without leaving gaps. For example, the early weeks might highlight foundational concepts, while the later weeks integrate application and review. The weekly themes act like chapters in a book, organized, sequential, and progressively challenging. By visualizing the journey in this way, you create a roadmap where each week feels purposeful, not arbitrary. This mapping also helps anticipate where effort should intensify, particularly in domains that demand deeper understanding or cover more exam weight. Domain weighting is a key part of allocating time. Not all sections of the exam carry equal importance. Some domains may account for a larger share of questions, meaning they deserve more study hours. Awareness of weighting prevents misalignment, such as overinvesting in lighter domains at the expense of heavier ones. It is like budgeting money. You must allocate according to the largest expenses rather than distributing evenly. By studying with weight in mind, you prepare strategically, maximizing impact for each hour spent. This also builds confidence because you know your study mirrors the structure of the exam itself. The weighting becomes less a burden and more a guide for efficient, balanced preparation. Weekly objectives bring specificity to this plan. Instead of vague goals such as Study Domain 2, objectives detail what will be covered, how many practice questions will be attempted, and what review activities will follow. For instance, an objective might state, cover cloud data lifecycle stages, complete 20 practice questions, and review glossary entries. These objectives give you checkpoints to measure progress and adjust as needed. They transform study from passive exposure into active engagement. Each week concludes with a sense of closure, knowing you met defined targets, and each new week begins with clarity about what lies ahead. The objectives function like mile markers on a long road, showing you how far you've come and how much remains. Daily routines provide the microstructure within each week. By partitioning study into blocks, you balance listening to content, refining notes, and testing recall. For example, a morning commute might be dedicated to listening, a lunch break to quick note refinement, and an evening session to practice questions. These blocks distribute learning across the day, turning study into a rhythm rather than a chore. Partitioning also respects the reality of limited attention spans. Instead of forcing long marathons, you divide study into focused, digestible segments. This daily structure prevents procrastination because each part of the day has a defined task. Over time, it becomes habit, reducing reliance on willpower. Alternating heavy content and light content days is another way to manage cognitive load sustainably. Cloud security involves dense material, such as legal frameworks or cryptographic models, but it also includes lighter concepts like reviewing definitions or refreshing practice logs. Alternating these types keeps study fresh and prevents burnout. It is like alternating weightlifting with stretching in a fitness plan. The variation keeps the body and mind engaged while still moving forward. Heavy days challenge depth. Light days reinforce breadth, and together they create balance. Learners often find that this alternation increases motivation, since they know not every day demands maximum effort. Instead, the rhythm provides natural recovery built into the week. Buffer days are reserved at the end of each week for catch-up and consolidation. Life is unpredictable, and schedules rarely proceed perfectly. Buffer days absorb disruptions by providing space to revisit unfinished objectives. They also serve as review opportunities, consolidating what was learned earlier in the week. This flexibility prevents small delays from cascading into major setbacks. Buffer days also reduce guilt, since you know the plan already accounts for inevitable slips. Rather than feeling behind, you see disruption as part of the design. This perspective supports resilience, helping you sustain momentum through the full 8 weeks without feeling derailed by the occasional missed session. Rest and recovery days are equally essential. Constant study without breaks may seem virtuous, but it often leads to diminishing returns. The brain, like any muscle, strengthens during periods of rest as much as during exertion. Scheduling rest days protects attention and sustains motivation across the long haul. These are not wasted days. They are active investments in energy and retention. When you return after rest, material feels fresher and focus sharper. Just as athletes schedule rest to prevent injury, learners must rest to prevent burnout. By honoring rest days, you give yourself permission to sustain peak performance over the 8-week journey. Midweek checkpoints serve as small but meaningful pauses to measure progress. Halfway through the week, you ask, "Am I on pace with objectives? Do I need to adjust time allocation?" These checkpoints are like pit stops in a race brief, efficient, and essential for staying on track. They allow you to spot slippage early, rather than discovering at week's end that goals were missed. They also give psychological reinforcement when progress is on track, boosting motivation. Midweek reflection turns the plan into a living system, responsive to reality rather than rigidly fixed. This adaptability ensures that even when life intervenes, momentum continues without loss of control. The ideal segment length for audio-first learning is 12 to 15 minutes. This window matches the natural span of focused attention without causing fatigue. By keeping sessions short, you encourage active listening rather than passive exposure. It is easier to review a concise segment multiple times than to revisit a long lecture. This segmenting also makes it easier to insert study into daily routines during a commute, a walk, or a coffee break. Over time, these short but focused bursts accumulate into substantial learning. They prevent overload and build retention more effectively than extended, unfocused listening. The principle is quality over sheer quantity, reinforcing depth of engagement with each session. Rotating focus across domains ensures recurring exposure throughout the plan. Even if a given week emphasizes one domain, short revisits to others maintain familiarity and prevent forgetting. This rotation is like rotating crops in a field. Each area stays healthy through periodic attention. By touching multiple domains across weeks, you strengthen connections between them, reinforcing cross-cutting themes such as identity management or encryption. This integrated approach mirrors the exam itself, where questions often combine concepts. Rotation keeps knowledge active and prevents the lopsided retention that results from long isolation of domains. Over 8 weeks, this method builds a balanced, interconnected understanding. Tracking a materials inventory is another foundation of effective planning. This inventory lists your primary sources, such as official study guides or audio prepcasts, along with secondary references like white papers or standards. It also includes official errata, ensuring you stay aligned with the most current content. Maintaining this inventory prevents wasted time hunting for resources and reduces the risk of missing key updates. It is like managing a toolkit. You know what tools you have, where they are, and when they were last updated. An organized inventory supports consistency, especially when returning to study after a break or when supplementing material midstream. Version control of notes may sound technical, but it is a practical safeguard against confusion. As you refine notes, update definitions, or add new insights, earlier versions can linger and create drift. Without control, you risk reviewing outdated or conflicting content. A simple system marking notes by date or storing them in organized folders prevents this problem. It ensures that every review session builds on the most current understanding. In professional practice, version control prevents errors in documentation or code. In study, it ensures accuracy and clarity. By controlling versions, you protect the integrity of your learning process and reduce wasted effort. Calendar blocking translates your study plan into action by scheduling specific sessions on specific days. Instead of a vague intention to study this week, you have concrete appointments: Monday evening for Domain 1 review, Tuesday morning for practice questions, and so on. This technique converts study into a commitment, much like meetings on a work calendar. The visual blocks also help you balance study with other responsibilities, preventing overload or neglect. Seeing the plan laid out gives psychological weight, making it harder to skip. Over 8 weeks, calendar blocking turns ambition into accountability, ensuring steady progress. Risk management is essential because disruptions are inevitable. Illness, travel, or unexpected work demands can break routines. A resilient plan includes contingency slots, flexible periods reserved for catch-up, and a system for trimming priorities when time is scarce. For instance, if a disruption eliminates a session, you might skip secondary readings while preserving primary practice questions. This approach mirrors professional risk management: anticipate risks, plan responses, and adapt without losing momentum. By building flexibility into the plan, you protect against derailment. Instead of viewing disruption as failure, you see it as a variable accounted for, reinforcing resilience and continuity. End-of-week retrospectives are short reflections that capture lessons for the next week's plan. What strategies worked well? Where did distractions creep in? Did objectives feel realistic or too ambitious? By writing a few sentences, you create a feedback loop. This reflection transforms the plan from static to dynamic, improving with each cycle. It also reinforces motivation, since you see growth not only in knowledge, but in study habits themselves. These retrospectives become a log of progress, showing that you are not only covering content, but also becoming more efficient and adaptive as a learner. The practice mirrors professional retrospectives in projects, where teams refine their process over time. For more cyber-related content and books, please check out cyberauthor.me. Also, there are other prepcasts on cybersecurity and more at baremetalcyber.com. Week 1 begins with orientation and an introduction to Domain 1. This is your opportunity to set the foundation, not just in content, but in habits. The week should emphasize the broader scope of the exam, familiarizing yourself with its structure while dipping into the architectural and design concepts that underpin cloud security. Think of this as laying the cornerstones of a building. Before you raise walls, you ensure the base is level and stable. During this first week, you can also experiment with your daily study, routine testing different times of day, adjusting block lengths, and finding an environment that best supports focus. The primary goal is to gain clarity. Clarity about what you are studying, how you will study, and how the process fits into your life for the weeks ahead. Week 2 builds momentum by deepening your grasp of Domain 1 while introducing Domain 2, which covers the data lifecycle. This domain explores how information is created, stored, shared, and eventually retired within cloud systems. Understanding this lifecycle is critical, because every stage carries distinct risks and protections. For example, data at rest may need encryption, while data in transit requires secure channels. By weaving Domain 2 into your second week, you begin linking architectural concepts from Domain 1 to practical data considerations. The combination reinforces the idea that design and data are inseparable in the cloud. This week also allows you to refine time management, ensuring heavier content is paired with lighter review tasks to maintain balance. Week 3 continues the focus on Domain 2, emphasizing protections and classification while layering in early practice. This stage is about learning not just what data is, but how to categorize it based on sensitivity and regulatory requirements. Classification drives decision-making. Public versus confidential data does not warrant the same level of protection. Early practice questions are especially valuable here because they reveal how theory translates into exam items. You may find that concepts you understood abstractly become trickier when framed in practical scenarios. By practicing now, you expose these gaps while there is ample time to address them. The combination of deep content and early application strengthens confidence in navigating one of the most frequently tested domains. Week 4 transitions into Domain 3, which explores platform and infrastructure security. This is where the abstract becomes highly technical. Controls, configurations, and architectural choices that secure cloud environments. Expect to study concepts like virtualization security, network segmentation, and control layers specific to cloud platforms. To prevent overload, this week should also include a consolidation review looping back to Domains 1 and 2 for reinforcement. Think of it like revisiting earlier chapters of a novel to see how the themes connect as the story expands. This consolidation prevents earlier learning from fading and keeps the domains integrated. Week 4 is often where learners feel the pace increase, so deliberate pacing and structured breaks are especially important. Week 5 continues Domain 3 while opening Domain 4, which emphasizes application security. Shifting from platforms to applications highlights the layered nature of cloud environments. You move from securing the foundation to securing what runs on top of it. This includes topics like secure software development, managing APIs, and testing applications for vulnerabilities. The interplay between infrastructure and applications mirrors real-world scenarios, where attackers may exploit weak points at either layer. By handling both domains in this week, you practice connecting layers and thinking holistically. It is also a time to revisit practice logs, identifying where you need more attention in earlier domains before the plan accelerates toward the final stretch. Week 6 deepens Domain 4 with emphasis on secure development and testing practices. This is about embedding security into the lifecycle of software, from design through deployment. Concepts like code reviews, static and dynamic testing, and integration of security into continuous delivery pipelines come to the forefront. These are technical but also procedural, reflecting the shared responsibility between developers and security professionals. This week can feel dense, so managing session length and alternating heavy and light tasks is critical. Pair in-depth study of development practices with lighter review activities, such as glossary refreshers, to maintain balance. The aim is not just to memorize tools, but to understand how they shape the security posture of applications in cloud settings. Week 7 turns to Domain 5, which covers operations, and Domain 6, which addresses legal, risk, and compliance issues. By this stage, the technical core has been laid, and the focus shifts to sustaining and governing it responsibly. Operations involve monitoring, incident response, and continuity planning, while the legal and compliance domain introduces regulations, contracts, and jurisdictional issues. These topics demand a different kind of attention, less about technical detail and more about frameworks, obligations, and organizational processes. The change of pace is helpful after technical-heavy weeks, offering a new perspective that underscores the holistic nature of cloud security. Together, these domains round out your understanding of not only how to secure systems, but how to align them with broader organizational and societal expectations. Week 8 is dedicated to integration and exam readiness. At this point, you should focus less on learning new material and more on consolidating knowledge across domains. This includes full-length practice simulations, timed under exam conditions, to test pacing and stamina. It also includes practical logistics, confirming travel to the testing center, verifying identification requirements, and rehearsing routines for exam day. Integration reviews help reinforce connections across domains, while simulations reveal how well you apply knowledge under pressure. The goal is to finish the plan with confidence, knowing you have prepared systematically and thoughtfully. Week 8 is less about cramming and more about solidifying, ensuring that the weeks of effort culminate in readiness for success. A rolling backlog supports this plan by capturing items left uncovered during earlier sessions. Instead of letting missed material vanish, you record it and slot it into the next available block. This ensures nothing slips through the cracks. The backlog acts like a safety net, catching gaps and feeding them back into the schedule. Over time, it shrinks as you address each item. This system prevents the discouragement that comes from falling behind, since you know every missed task has a planned place later. It reflects resilience in planning, turning imperfection into manageable adjustment rather than derailment. A simple Kanban method can organize study tasks visually. By categorizing them into to do, in progress, and done, you create a workflow that makes progress visible. This board can be digital or physical, depending on preference. Moving tasks from one column to the next provides psychological reward and clarity about what remains. It also prevents overcommitment, since you can see at a glance how much is on your plate. Kanban reflects professional project management practices, and applying it to study reinforces organizational discipline. It transforms abstract goals into concrete, trackable actions that move steadily toward completion. Limiting context switching is another protective measure. Studying too many topics in one day dilutes focus and hinders depth. By capping the number of topics per session, perhaps 2 at most, you allow concentration to deepen. This is similar to focusing on one complex task at work rather than juggling many shallow tasks. In study, depth matters more than breadth in each session. With capped switching, you absorb material more thoroughly and reduce mental fatigue. The 8-week plan supports this by structuring domains across days, but it is up to you to respect those boundaries during daily execution. Discipline here pays dividends in retention and confidence. A start-of-day ritual primes attention by briefly reviewing key points from the previous session. This 5-minute activity acts as a mental warm-up, reminding the brain where you left off and preparing it to absorb new material. It could involve scanning glossary entries, listening to a short recap, or rereading a few notes. The ritual sets the tone, creating continuity between sessions rather than treating each as isolated. Like stretching before exercise, it readies the mind and prevents wasted time reorienting. Over weeks, this ritual builds a rhythm of recall and readiness, reinforcing the sense that study is not a one-time event, but a sustained journey. A pre-sleep review leverages the brain's natural consolidation process. Reviewing a concise summary before bed allows your memory to reinforce that information during sleep. This review should be light and focused, perhaps listening to a glossary segment or scanning a brief summary of key points. The aim is not to introduce new material but to strengthen recall of what was already studied. Sleep plays a powerful role in embedding learning, and this habit maximizes that natural process. It is a simple, low-effort technique with high impact, turning the last minutes of the day into an investment in stronger memory. A test day rehearsal during week 8 provides confidence by removing logistical uncertainty. This involves verifying identification documents, planning travel time to the center, and even practicing the morning routine you will follow. Rehearsal prevents surprises that could cause anxiety on the actual day. It is like a dress rehearsal before a performance. You walk through the motions so the final event feels familiar. Even small details, such as knowing where to park or what to eat beforehand, contribute to a calm mindset. This rehearsal translates preparation into readiness, ensuring that nothing outside the content undermines your performance when it matters most. The plan does not end with the exam. After passing, you transition into a maintenance phase through continuing professional education, or CPE, credits. These credits ensure you remain current, reflecting the rapid evolution of cloud technologies and threats. Maintenance is less intense than exam prep, but equally important, since it sustains the value of the credential. Tracking CPEs becomes part of your professional routine, encouraging lifelong learning. By preparing for this transition, you see the exam not as a finish line, but but as a gateway into ongoing growth. This perspective reinforces resilience and sets the stage for continued relevance in a fast-changing field. In summary, an 8-week study plan supported by daily routines transforms intention into reliable progress. Each week builds on the last, balancing content coverage with review, practice, and rest. Daily structures create rhythm, while tools like backlogs, Kanban, and rituals sustain focus and motivation. By the end, preparation feels less like a burden and more like a practiced routine that naturally culminates in readiness. The plan not only prepares you for the exam, but also models professional habits, organization, resilience, and reflection that carry forward into your career. With discipline and adaptability, 8 weeks becomes a pathway to both certification success and lasting confidence in your cloud security expertise. Thanks for tuning in to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, your trusted source for cybersecurity news and insights. Remember to subscribe at baremetalcyber.com so you never miss an update. And visit cyberauthor.me for best-selling cybersecurity books that equip you with expert knowledge. Until next time, stay secure and stay vigilant.